Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Yeah, so the topic for the day is Cauchy integral formula and its beautiful consequences. So last time we saw Cauchy's theorem, which said that if omega is a domain in C and gamma is a simple closed contour in omega and f is a holomorphic function on an open set containing gamma and its interior, then integral fz dz along gamma is equal to 0. This was the main theorem of last time. Okay, so let me just say it again. So we saw Cauchy's theorem last time. You have a holomorphic function on a domain omega. Gamma is a simple closed contour. F is a holomorphic function on an open set containing gamma and its interior. Then integration of fz dz along gamma is 0. More generally, if omega is simply connected domain and f is a holomorphic function of omega, then integration of fz dz along gamma is 0 for every closed curve gamma contained in omega. Recall that for a parameterized differentiable curve gamma from A to closed interval AB to gamma, we define integration of z dz along gamma to be integration f of gamma t into gamma prime t dt. So how we define the integral? Make a change of variables and integrate usual Riemann integral then. So let me recall so this was last time. I hope this is all clear by now. The proof of the theorem used Green's theorem from MA 105. And simply connectedness, let me recall, simply means omega is said to be simply connected if, first of all, omega is a domain and for any simple closed curve gamma is contained inside omega, all the interior points of gamma are again contained inside omega. So Jordan-Coe theorem tells you that when you have a simple closed curve gamma, it has an interior and an exterior. The interior is bounded, the exterior is unbounded. So all of the interior of gamma should be contained inside omega. If that happens for every simple closed curve, we call omega simply connected. And the basic example was that you take integration of fz dz to be, so take fz equal to 1 upon z minus z naught and take integration 1 upon z minus z naught dz along C for any where C is any circle around z naught, and we parameterized C as zt equal to z naught plus r e raised to it, and then integration of z dz along C is integration 1 upon z minus z naught dz along C, which is 1 upon r e raised to it times I r e raised to it dt. Cancelling, you get 2 pi I. So this was the basic example from last time, which we are again going to use in today's lecture. And note that the integral is independent of the circle chosen around z naught. This is an instance of the following more general situation. So here is generalization of the basic example. So a stronger form of Cauchy's theorem. Let omega be a domain in C if gamma and gamma prime are two closed contours in omega which can be continuously deformed into each other. Then integration of z dz along C is integration of z dz along C prime. Sorry, C and C prime should be gamma and gamma prime here. There will be typo which I will correct. So if you can deform two closed contours, you can continuously deform one closed contour into another closed contour, then the integrals don't change. The phrase continuously deformed is in inverted commas here. It takes some effort to make this precise. Let's not go into that. But you can intuitively we all understand what continuously deform means. That means you have a family of closed contours starting with gamma and ending with gamma prime. Suppose you can connect the two contours gamma and gamma prime by a continuous family of closed contours starting with gamma and ending with gamma prime, then I will say that they can continuously deform into each other. And if you can deform two contours in gamma into each other, the deformation should happen within gamma, then the integrals along gamma and gamma prime are the same. The C and C prime is a typo I changed, should be gamma and gamma prime. So this is the more general form of Cauchy's theorem. What happens when the domain is simply connected is that every closed contour can be continuously deformed into the constant loop. Constant at z naught, constant loop at z naught, and the integral of that is 0. Therefore, you recover the special case of Cauchy's theorem from this more general form. Any doubts so far?
Is deformation a reparameterization or something else?
No, not reparameterization. You continuously move gamma and you get gamma prime. So initially you have gamma, then you move the contour a little bit, move it even more, and finally you end up with the contour gamma prime.
The F is still holomorphic here.
Yeah. The function is still holomorphic.
And omega need not be simply connected?
Omega may not be simply connected. That's the point. That's why this is more general. Take any domain, may or may not be simply connected. If you have two close contours, one deformable into another within gamma, within omega, then the integrals along them are the same. Simply connectedness assumption goes away. If it is simply connected, what will happen is for every close contour the integral is 0. Here we are not saying that for every close contour the integral is 0, but if you have two close contours which are deformable, continuously deformable into each other, then the integrals are the same.
Sir,
Yeah.
if we take simply connectedness into account, like it was taking analogy from MA 105 which we had, like if we have two curves, like the area is close. So one curve is considered to two circles having same center, like concentric circles. So integral around one circle will be the negative of the integral around the inner circle. So like if the direction is taken into account, like
Right.
either.
So that's a good point, and whatever you are saying, I mean, will be relevant to today's discussion. We'll come to that a little later today. So we're going to do something very similar to what you said. We will integral along some curve gamma. We will break it up into sum of various integrals, and then this going in one orientation versus going in another orientation will come into play. So here, So basically, what is let me not elaborate on that point right now. It will come up in the lecture today.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, if there is a curve gamma double prime between gamma and gamma prime, then still, I mean, even that will also have the same value of the integral.
No. First of all, one has to be precise about what you mean by in between. But let us say, suppose we can make a definition of in between. Let's say you have a curve gamma double prime which lies in between the area spanned by gamma and gamma prime. Let's say.
Yes.
But such a curve may not be deformable into gamma or gamma prime. You may not be able to deform gamma. Just because it is in between doesn't mean gamma or gamma prime can be deformed into it. For example, take the annulus. Yeah, region between two concentric circles.
Yes.
Gamma may be one loop going around the circle, going around the annulus. Gamma prime might be another loop going around the annulus. Now, in between gamma and gamma prime, you may have some loop which does not go along the annulus. It's a small loop which does not go around.
Yes, yes.
Then neither gamma or gamma prime can be deformed into gamma double prime. So let's move on. So this is the more general form of Cauchy's theorem. This is not, let me repeat, not necessarily the most general form of Cauchy's theorem, but it's more general than what we have seen before. Just like the basic example, a similar computation shows that integration of 1 upon z minus z naught raised to m is equal to 0 for all m not equal to 1. We saw that when m is equal to 1, you get 2 pi I, but if m is different from 1, you get 0. This follows from the fact that 1 upon z minus z naught to the power m admits a primitive in c minus z naught whenever m is different from 1. So let's say c is a curve going around m naught. This c is a curve which goes around z naught, and if m is different from 1, then 1 upon z minus z naught raised to m admits a primitive. Right? For example, if I take 1 upon z minus 1 upon 1 minus z naught square, for example. Let's take m equal to 2. So take 1 upon z minus z naught square, then its primitive is minus 1 upon z minus z naught, right? If you differentiate minus 1 upon z minus z naught, you will get 1 upon z minus z naught, 1 upon z minus z naught square. So when m is different from 1, this admits a primitive, and therefore the integral is equal to the difference at the endpoints. Difference is equal to the primitive at one end minus the value of the primitive at the other end, but it's a closed contour, so the value at the starting point and the end point is same, so this integral is 0. So whenever a function has a primitive on omega, then integral along any curve in omega is 0. Problem with 1 upon z minus z naught was, so note that's the next line, so note that when m is equal to 1 upon z minus z naught raised to m that means just 1 upon z minus z naught, does not admit a primitive. You would have been tempted to say log of z minus z naught is a primitive, but log of z minus z naught does not define a holomorphic function on any open subset in C in the complex plane containing C. So we are going to have a more detailed discussion on log when this point will perhaps become more clear. Right now, I'm not proving the statement, but basically it has no primitive because there is log of z minus z naught, which is the natural choice of primitive. This actually does not define a holomorphic function. Yeah, I hope this point is clear. The difference between what happens when m is equal to 1 versus what happens when m is different from 1.
Sir, why is it not holomorphic?
Yeah, so I'll explain this. We are going to have a discussion on log. The discussion will involve some complex, little more complex, will involve some complex integration. So I postponed it a little bit.
Yes.
We are going to discuss log again. Earlier we had a discussion on log that was more about defining log pointwise. For a complex number, defining log. Now we want to understand log as a holomorphic function. We will do that in somewhat greater detail. Right now I'm not proving that, but nevertheless the lines before that are clear. I hope that when m is equal to 1, this is non-zero. When m is different from 1, this is 0, and it is 0 because it has a primitive. That part is quite clear. Should be quite clear already. Okay, now we will use Cauchy's theorem to prove another very important, closely related theorem in this subject, almost like a twin brother of Cauchy's theorem that we saw, namely the Cauchy integral formula. We state the theorem, Cauchy integral formula is really a formula. So let f be holomorphic everywhere on an open set containing a simple closed curve. So it is holomorphic on some open set containing gamma. Notice here that so sorry. So when I say holomorphic everywhere meaning it's holomorphic on gamma and inside and on some open set containing gamma. Yeah, we are only talking about holomorphic functions defined on open sets. So that means there is an open set omega inside and the curve gamma inside it. So that on gamma and everything inside gamma, the function is holomorphic. Then if z0 is interior to gamma, then fz0 is equal to 1 upon 2 pi I integration fz dz upon z minus z0 along gamma. So the value of the function at z0 is the integral of the fz upon z minus z0 to factor 1 upon 2 pi I. So I hope the theorem is clear. Notice that there is no reason for this integral to be 0 because although fz is holomorphic inside gamma, fz upon z minus z0 is not holomorphic. Yeah, fz upon z minus z0 sort of blows up when z is equal to z0. So we are not integrating a holomorphic function inside omega, inside gamma. Sorry, fz is holomorphic inside gamma, but fz upon z minus z0 is not holomorphic inside gamma. So there is no reason for this integral to be 0 by Cauchy's theorem. So this is what we want to prove. So therefore, notice something very interesting. Therefore, very interesting consequence of this theorem is that if you have a closed contour and a function which is holomorphic on and inside gamma, then the value of the function at any point inside gamma is completely determined by the value of the function on gamma. Yeah, you are integrating a certain function only on gamma, but somehow that determines the value of the function at every point inside gamma. Z0 is an arbitrary point in the interior of gamma, and its value can be determined by this integral. So it's a beautiful theorem, really. Is this clear?
Sir, could you please repeat the statement again?
So you have an open set omega. I have not written omega. Omega is understood. So you have a simple closed curve gamma, positively oriented. Positively oriented means in the anti-clockwise direction always. And you have a point z0 which is interior to gamma. Fz is holomorphic everywhere. It is holomorphic on gamma. It is holomorphic in the interior of gamma. Everywhere. It is holomorphic on an open set containing gamma and its interior. Maybe I should say it a little more precisely. F is holomorphic on an open set containing gamma and its interior. Then fz0 equal to 1 upon 2 pi I integration fz dz upon z minus z0. Is it clear? F is holomorphic everywhere I have said, but
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So let's prove this. This is a very important theorem. And I hope the remark that I made is also clear, because that was also an important remark, that the values that the function takes along gamma determine the value that the function takes at all points inside gamma. So we will use the following fact in the proof, often called the ML inequality. So if gamma is a contour of length L, I'm not assuming closed now, and fz mod fz is less than or equal to m on gamma, then integration mod fz dz along gamma is less than or equal to m times L. So this is very close to what you know of in integration, right? Yeah, your contour of length L, the value of the function is bounded above by m in absolute value. Then the integral of mod fz is bounded by m times L. The maximum value of the function times the length of the contour is the upper bound for the integral. This is exactly because after all this integral is going to be converted into a certain Riemann integral, and you know that this fact is true for Riemann integral. If I have a continuous function on closed interval AB which is bounded above by m, then the integral is going to be bounded by m times b minus a. So this is the same thing that is happening. We will use this to give a proof of Cauchy's theorem. So let us embark on the proof. So we need to show that integration fz dz upon z minus z naught along gamma is equal to integration f of z naught dz upon z minus z naught along gamma. Because we know that the right hand side is 2 pi I times f of z naught. Yeah, take f of z naught outside and then you are left with 2 pi I. So the right hand side is 2 pi I times f of z naught. So we need to prove this equality. And since f is continuous at z naught, it's holomorphic, so it's continuous. Given epsilon positive, there exists delta positive, so that mod of z minus z naught less than delta implies mod of z minus fz naught less than epsilon. Now choose some real number r less than delta and consider the circle CR, which is mod of z minus z naught equal to r. Choose this circle. Now apply Cauchy's theorem to gamma union minus CR. So applying Cauchy's theorem, the old Cauchy's theorem about if you have a function which is holomorphic on a curve and its interior, then the integral is 0. That theorem which we proved in the last lecture, main theorem of Cauchy. Integration fz, we get integration along gamma of fz minus fz naught upon z minus z naught dz is equal to integration fz minus fz naught upon z minus z naught dz along CR. So integration along gamma has been converted into integration along CR. So just look at the figure that I have drawn. So what? Very geometric argument. So you have this point central. You have this outer curve gamma. You have this point z naught in the center. I have drawn a little circle CR centered around z naught. Now I claim that integrating the function along gamma is the same as integrating the function along CR. And I want to justify the last step that I have written, that integration along gamma is equal to integration along CR. I'm going to do that. So the idea is you make this little slit. So at the initial, you can see that I have drawn those two horizontal rays labeled L1 and L2. Right? So if you look at the shaded region that I have drawn, this is the shade. So just let me go to the next slide. Look at this path of integration, gamma followed by L1 followed by minus CR followed by L2. Minus CR means take the orientation to be the opposite, namely clockwise. So take the path of integration gamma followed by L1 followed by minus CR followed by L2. So you go along gamma first, then you go along L1 to the left, then you do minus CR, that means CR in the clockwise direction, and then you go along L2 to the right. This would be okay. Now notice that L1 and L2 are very close to each other, but with opposite orientation. L1 is directed to the left, L2 is directed to the right. So L1 and L2 are very close, but with opposite integration. So the integrals along these paths cancel each other in the limit as the two horizontal strips approach each other. So I have made this little slit there as the vertical distance between L1 and L2 tends to 0. in the limit, integration along L1 will be equal to integration along L2 because you have taken them in opposite orientation. Yeah, this is like saying integration fx dx from a to b is minus integration fx dx from b to a. So in the limit, those two will cancel each other. But this total integral along gamma followed by integration along L1 followed by integration along minus CR followed by integration along L2, this is 0. Yeah, what I have written. This contour encloses the shaded region which does not enclose any poles, and hence this integral is 0. Hence this integral is 0. Since gamma union minus CR is typo. Yeah, is this clear? So if I take this path which I just explained, gamma followed by L1 followed by minus CR followed by L2, that's a contour which encloses the shaded region. But the shaded region has no poles. So the function is holomorphic on and inside that. And so the integral will be 0. Is this clear?
This is just like we did in Green's theorem when we decomposed a curve to a smaller curve.
In which theorem?
In M105, we decomposed a bigger curve into a smaller curve.
Probably you did something similar. Okay. Yeah. So it is, yeah, I guess it is like
so
that.
how can we mathematically prove that the integration along gamma will be same as the integration along CR?
No, that is what I explained, because the total integral is 0. Integration along gamma plus integration along L1 plus integration along minus CR plus integration along L2 is 0.
But why will the integration along L1 and L2 cancel each other? Like, is it because
They will in the limit. In the limit it will cancel each other, no?
okay, so that is something we are assuming from the geometry of the thing.
Not really geometry. You can make that you can make precise, right? If I have two curves which are very close to each other and I take them in opposite orientation, the integrals will be very close to each other, and I can make it arbitrarily close. So I am saying since the total integral is 0 and the integration along L1 cancels with the integration along L2, therefore integration along gamma is equal to integration along. Therefore integration of gamma plus integration along minus CR is equal to 0. Therefore this implies integration. Therefore integration of gamma is equal to integration along CR. Yeah, so it's a pretty neat argument, very nice argument actually.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, I had a doubt. In the beginning only, we have f of z minus f of z naught upon z minus z naught. Now this function is holomorphic, right? We can prove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now can't we apply the Cauchy theorem directly on this and say that this is 0? Because what is the condition that is violating? That this is violating?
It is not defined as Z0.
Yeah. So the point. Yeah. So you will have to prove that. Yeah. So why is it why is this holomorphic at Z0?
Yes, sir, that proof can be given. We can say that as f is a holomorphic function, we can make a power series around Z0.
But look, we have not proved, by the way, that holomorphic implies analytic yet. We are going to prove that.
Okay.
All this work, I mean, part of the reason we are doing this work is to prove eventually at the end of today's lecture that holomorphic implies analytic.
Sir, and
Incidentally, what you are saying is true. You can define, but that's something we have, a couple of lectures from now, 2-3 lectures from now, we are going to discuss singularities of functions, and then you will see that this can actually be made into a holomorphic function. But right now, we don't need to do any of that. Just the Cauchy's theorem that we have proved allows us to conclude that integration along gamma is integration along CR. I hope this argument is clear. Why this integral are the same? I spent some time explaining this. The explanation is in this first paragraph.
yes, sir. Okay, sir.
So now what we wanted to, so now we are, so because of the previous step, now we are reduced to estimating this value, modulus of integration fz minus fz naught upon z minus z naught dz along this curve CR. But this is less than or equal to, by the modulus of integral is less than or equal to integral of modulus. So this is less than or equal to integration along CR mod fz minus fz naught upon the mod z minus z naught times dz. But now we know that mod of you are integrating along CR, and on CR we know that mod of z minus fz naught is less than epsilon. Mod of z minus z naught on the other hand is equal to r. So you have so this thing is less than or equal to epsilon by r, into integration dz upon z upon over CR is 2 pi r. So this whole thing is less than epsilon upon r into 2 pi r. R cancels, so this is 2 pi epsilon. So this can be, thus this can, epsilon is in our hands, how small to make it. So thus this modulus of this integral can be made arbitrarily small and hence it is 0. This is what we wanted. So it's a simple proof but quite interesting, somewhat ingenious. Yeah, you are instead of integrating along that big curve gamma, you are reduced to integrating along the small curve around z0, and integral along that small curve around z0 because of this trivial estimate can be made is as small as you want by making that curve along z0 as small as you need. Can I move ahead? So this we have proved the second very important theorem in the course, Cauchy integral formula. In fact, if you think about it, this region enclosed by gamma, L1, L2 and minus CR, that means the shaded region that I have drawn, this is actually a simply connected region, right? And I have a holomorphic function in that simply connected region, and therefore the integral is going to be 0. If I take this closed curve, if I take this closed contour gamma, L1 minus CR and then L2, take this closed contour, then by Jordan-Coe theorem, it has an interior and it has an exterior. What is the interior? The interior is the shaded region that I have drawn, and the function is holomorphic in the interior. So the old Cauchy's theorem that we have studied, in the last lecture applies, and so the integral along this whole contour is 0, but integral along L1 and L2 cancel each other in the limit. So integration along gamma is integration along minus CR.
Sir, how did you prove the holomorphicity of the function?
No, in the shaded region. The shaded region, fz minus fz0 upon z minus z0 is problematic.
Okay, sir, understood. Yeah. Z0 is excluded, that's it.
Now z0 is excluded. It's not in the shaded region. Yeah.